The German Tiger tank is widely known as the most feared tank in World War II. Since its entrance on the battlefield in 1942, the Tiger tank quickly gained a reputation from its Allied opponents of being virtually indestructible while inflicting maximum damage against heavily armored opponents. The desire to build such a powerful tank came when Adolf Hitler began to rise to power. The Treaty of Versailles prevented Germany from having an army of more than 100,000 soldiers. It also halted the development of sophisticated weaponry such as tanks. Hitler was furious that Germany wasn't allowed to rebuild their army, and the majority of the German people felt that the treaty was an insult to the honor of the nation. In 1935, Hitler began building the first fleet of tanks known as the 1st Panzer Division, against the rules of the treaty. When World War II started in 1939, the effectiveness of the Panzer Division was shown when Germany successfully invaded Poland in 1939 and France in 1940. This momentum appeared to show the German army to be unstoppable, further propelling the development of the Panzer Division in Germany. However, the sudden appearance of the T-34 and the KV-1 in the summer of 1941 came as a shock to German troops. The Soviet Union had an abundant number of T-34 tanks that had better defensive and offensive capabilities than the existing German tanks at the time. Both of the Soviet tanks had a 7.62 centimeter gun, which completely dwarfed the firepower of the German tanks, which were using only 3.7 centimeter anti-tank rounds. The KV-1 tank also had amazing armor for its time, making it almost impenetrable to German artillery. During this chaos, there were two companies working on developing a heavy tank for the German army, Porsche and Henschel, and work was done in secrecy until 1942, when the first batch of Tiger tanks were sent into battle. The first model of the Tiger tank is known as the Tiger I. At the time of its initial deployment, it appeared to shock the Allied forces through its advanced armor and durability. The Tiger I had front armor measuring 100 millimeters, upper side armor of 80 millimeters, and rear armor of 80 millimeters. Compare that to the armor of the Soviet T-34 tank, which had 47 millimeter at the front, 40 millimeters at the sides, and 45 millimeter at the rear. The build quality of the German tanks was outstanding, with the tanks having high-quality welding to bond the metals of the tank versus the lower-quality rivets that were common on most Soviet tanks. The result was that Soviet shots seemed to bounce off the Tiger I, even during direct hits. A German after-action report from March 27, 1943 stated,
"During a scouting mission, 2 Tiger Is discovered 20 Russian T-34 frontally, as well as tanks attacked from the rear. Both Tigers received at least 10 hits at ranges between 600 meters and 1,000 meters, none of which penetrated their armor. Within 15 minutes, the 2 Tigers ended up destroying 10 enemy tanks."
In addition to its world-class armor, its firepower was also unmatched. The cannon aboard the Tiger I was an 8.8 centimeter KWK-36 anti-tank gun, the most powerful gun mounted to a tank at the time. The higher muzzle velocity of the gun gave it excellent armor-piercing capabilities. The attack range of the Tigers outclassed all tanks at the time. Another combat report from January 23, 1943 stated,
"Success against enemy tanks was possible at all ranges. The most favorable range was between 1,200 meters and 2,000 meters. At 2,000 meters, the first round will be a hit. The second round was only occasionally necessary. One Tiger I destroyed 5 T-34 at ranges between 2,500 meters and 3,000 meters. Only 18 rounds were fired."
In 1944, the German army released the successor of the Tiger I, the Tiger II, also known as the King Tiger. It had upgraded its gun to an 8.8 centimeter KWK-43, which gave its munition a higher muzzle velocity, increasing its armor-piercing capabilities. the Tiger II was able to effortlessly penetrate armor of up to 132 millimeters at a distance of 2,000 meters, which made it capable of easily destroying any Allied tank throughout the war. It wasn't uncommon for a Tiger II tank to destroy targets up to 5,000 meters away. The Tiger II's frontal armor also gave it 180 millimeters of protection versus the 100 millimeters on the Tiger I, while the side and rear armor was similar to its predecessor. Throughout the war, the Tigers dominated the battlefield, with the Tiger I and Tiger II having killed 11.54 tanks for every one of their own destroyed in battle. It was clear that the Germans created the best tanks in World War II, and any Allied tank crew to see a Tiger approach them would have been intimidated. Although they were the most feared tank on the battlefield, there were a multitude of problems that German Panzer crews faced when operating the Tigers. Oftentimes, the German army lacked the necessary reinforcements needed to defeat larger Allied forces. Instead, the Germans relied on their high-tech weaponry to win battles and secure victories, which was easily exploited by the Allies. For example, a German tank commander in Hungary reported,
"We continuously received orders to take a town at night, in unrecognized terrain and with far too weak infantry assistance. Such attacks are only successful when the grenadier participate alongside and in front of the Tigers, destroying the concealed anti-tank guns, which cannot be fought by the tanks." Sadly, they retreat at the first sign of enemy resistance, leaving the Tigers alone, making them targets for the enemy anti-tank team.
On the Eastern Front against the Soviets, the Tiger tanks were also overwhelmed by the sheer quantity of T-34 tanks in deployment. While the Germans had manufactured 1,360 Tiger Is and 489 Tiger IIs, the Soviet Army produced 84,070 T-34 tanks in the course of the war. Nearing the end of the war in 1944, the Soviets also developed the Js2 tank that rivaled the Tigers in offensive capabilities. It mounted a powerful 12.2 centimeter cannon with a high explosive shell, comparable to the 8.8 centimeter gun of the Tiger tanks. The armor of the Js2 also rivaled the Tigers, with frontal armor of 120 millimeters. On the Western Front against the United States, Britain, and Canada, the Tigers also ended up being less than effective, even with the Allies lacking any true heavy tank. Like the Soviets, the U.S. built approximately 49,234 M4 Shermans, which grossly outnumbered the number of Tiger tanks on the battlefield. In a report by the U.S. military, a captured German officer of a Panzer crew reported,
"The Tiger can easily shoot up to 10 American Panzers. You, however, always had an 11th US Panzer waiting to attack."
In addition to being outnumbered, the Tiger tanks were very prone to machine failure. As opposed to the flat grass plains of the Eastern Front, the Western Front had a more difficult environment to traverse, which often led to Tigers getting stuck and needing assistance. Moreover, the engines on the Tiger tank ran at a relatively high temperature, which reduced its lifespan significantly, which led to about 75% of them breaking down due to engine problems. All too often, they were intentionally destroyed as a result of minor damage or lack of fuel. This was done so the Allies couldn't capture and research the technology behind the impenetrable tanks. It is evident that Hitler was keen on building the biggest and most powerful tanks throughout the war, which led to the German army lacking the necessary reinforcements and supplies. However, the Tiger tanks still lives up to its name as one of the most feared tanks to encounter during World War II.